Chapter 9 The Panda Poop Club. Hot fudge sundaes all around, Cousin Howie barked at the waiter at the coffee shop. Then he added, "Better make them doubles." I should have known the guard at the Bureau of Printing and Engraving couldn't save me. I should have known Dad and Cousin Howie would want to catch up and talk about old times. Not that Cousin Howie was happy when Mom and Dad both said they prefer no-fat frozen yogurt to ice cream sundaes. You could see the disappointment on his face. He told the waiter to bring them a side order of hot fudge just in case. "In honor of Uncle Farley Drexel," Cousin Howie said to Dad. "Remember how he loved his hot fudge, Tubby?" "No," Dad said. "Then your memory's not what it used to be," Cousin Howie said. "Uncle Farley had a hot fudge sundae every day of his life. I'm sure the reason you call your boy Fudge is because of Uncle Farley Drexel's love for it." "I don't think so," Dad said. Eurodora laughed. "Well, Tubby, either way, it's a treat to be here with you and your family. Howie's told me so many stories about the two of you, about how close you were as boys, and how you were both going to be forest rangers when you grew up." "Forest rangers," I thought. "That's news to me." I tried to imagine Dad as a forest ranger, but I couldn't. He's such a city kind of guy. "Howie's a park ranger," Eurodora said. "He's been at all the national parks in Hawaii. On January 2nd, he's starting his new job at Everglades National Park. Until then, we'll be traveling around the country." "Everglades," Dad said. "That sounds exciting, Howie." "Yes, it does," Cousin Howie agreed. "How about you, Tubby? What do you do?" "Warren is in the advertising," Mom answered. "We live in New York City." "Advertising?" Cousin Howie's face clouded over. "Advertising?" "That's right," Dad said. And I was glad he sounded proud of his job. "But how can that be, Tub?" Cousin Howie asked. "Are you saying you broke your vows?" "Howie," Dad said. "We were boys. Boys change their minds when they become men." "Well, I am certainly disappointed to hear that," Cousin Howie said. "I never expected you to sell out." "What did you sell, Dad?" Fudge asked. "How much did you get for it?" "It wasn't a question of selling out, Howie," Dad said, ignoring Fudge. "It was a question of growing up and following my interests." "You tell him, Dad," I thought. Then I got this picture in my mind of Jimmy and me meeting about 20 years from now. Jimmy's wife will remind me that he and I vowed to become a professional sock hockey player. And I'll be, I don't know, a web designer or a movie director, and Jimmy will get all worked up about it because he'll be the star of the Vermont Blue Sox, the national sock hockey champions, and he'll tell me I sold out. "This is sad news, Tubby," Cousin Howie said, stretching out the word. "Advertising doesn't help make the world a better place." "Oh yes," Fudge said. "I learn a lot from commercials." "A lot of nothing," I thought. "Commercials," Cousin Howie said. "You write commercials?" Fudge licked his spoon and said, "My dad invented the Juicy O commercial, and the Toddle Bike commercial, and the one for Explode cereal." The Natural Beauties gave Fudge a blank look. "You know," Fudge told them, "from TV." "We don't have TV," Fauna said. "Pete," Fudge said, "did you hear that? They don't have TV." "And they aren't missing anything either," Cousin Howie said. Dad didn't respond. He was trying to be diplomatic, I could tell. But Fudge was like a train that couldn't be stopped. "And last year my dad wrote a book," he announced. Now Cousin Howie relaxed his brow. "A book? Well, that's more like it," he said. "Isn't that more like it, girls?" "Yes, Daddy," the Natural Beauties chanted. "That's more like it." "What kind of book, Tub?" Cousin Howie asked. But did Dad have a chance to answer? No, Turkey Brain wouldn't shut up. "Longer than a Dr. Seuss book," he said, "but shorter than an encyclopedia, right, Dad?" Dad tried to smile. He and Mom exchanged a look, then Dad said, "Actually, Howie, I was researching the history of advertising." Howie's face clouded over again. I noticed when he scrunched up his forehead, his eyebrows crept together as if they were living things. History is one thing, Tub, but the history of advertising is a... Eurodora put her hand on Cousin Howie's arm. "Now, Howie, let's remember, it takes all kinds to make the world go round." The Natural Beauties jumped up, put their heads close together, and hummed a note. "Oh no," I thought, "they're going to do it again. Get me out of here." This time it was some song about how love makes the world go round. Not only did they sing, they danced, all around the coffee shop. Fortunately, only 3 other tables were occupied. Fudge leaned close and whispered, "Is this a show, Pete?" "Yeah, a freak show," I thought, but instead of answering Fudge's question, I moaned and buried my head in my hands. Grateful we weren't in New York, where I might have known someone from school, and would say, "Saw you having ice cream with those weird sisters. Hope you're not related." During the show, Minnie buried his face in his ice cream bowl and lapped up what was left of the ice cream sundae. Cousin Howie and Eurodora didn't notice, not even when Minnie reached for the side order of hot fudge and lapped that up too. He reminded me of Turtle. That's exactly what he does when you give him leftover scrambled eggs. When the natural beauties finished their act, everyone in the coffee shop applauded, even our waiter. Eurodora beamed. They've been performing since they were 6, she told us. They're known across the Hawaiian Islands as the Heavenly Hatchers. This was even more embarrassing than I thought. When the waiter brought the bill, Dad grabbed it. My treat, he said. Cousin Howie didn't argue, neither did Eurodora, who said, Thank you, Tubby. That was mighty fine ice cream. This is a day we'll always remember. I was thinking, oh yeah, we'll definitely remember today. Then I pushed back my chair and stood up. So, Dad, we better get going. I tapped my watch. Remember the Air and Space Museum? Air and Space Museum, Fudge said. Do they have a gift shop? That night, Mom called Grandma from our hotel to find out how she was doing with Tootsie. The second she hung up, the phone rang. It was Cousin Howie. When Dad got off the line, he said, Well, boys, Cousin Howie's invited you on a VIP tour of the National Zoo tomorrow morning. Zoo? Fudge asked. He was playing with the airplane he got at the Air and Space Museum. Yes, Dad told him. And you know what they have at the National Zoo? Tigers, Fudge guessed, getting ready to launch his plane. I'm sure they do, Dad said. How about elephants? Fudge asked, pulling back his rubber band. Probably, Dad said. And they also have pandas. Pandas like in the IMAX movie? Fudge let go of the plane, which came flying across the room right at me. I held up my new book, A History of Aerial Warfare, to protect my face, and the plane crashed to the floor. Pete, look what you did to my plane. That's nothing compared to what your plane would have done to my face. Okay, boys, Mom said. How about getting into bed? Dad and I are pooped, and tomorrow's another busy day. I fell asleep and dreamed that the woman in the red suit, the one Fudge spit banana on, was my math teacher. She asked me to show her how I solved my problem. I kept trying, but I couldn't get the right answer. Then I was in a small plane. It was so dark I couldn't see the pilot's face. I had no idea who he was until he said, So, Pete, that's when I jumped, even though I had no parachute. As I fell, I passed the natural beauties who were slowly floating down. Catch him, Flora said. What for? Fauna asked. Then I woke up. My heart was racing. I checked my watch. It had only been 20 minutes since Mom turned out the lights. At 8 the next morning, Dad delivered Fudge and me to Cousin Howie. Howie was dressed in his park ranger uniform, sitting in the driver's seat of an official golf cart at the entrance of the zoo. You see, Tub, if you were a ranger, you could get special privileges, too. Eurodora sat next to him, with Minnie in her lap. The natural beauties sat in back. Hop aboard, boys, Howie called. Really sorry we can't invite you to join us, Tub, but we're at a limit now. Dad didn't look at all sorry he couldn't go with us. Keep an eye on Fudge, Peter. He'll call as he called as he dashed off. I wanted to run after him, going to a museum with him, and Mom had to be better than this. But before I had the chance, Howie floored it. Hang on, everybody, he sang as he nearly mowed down a group of early morning joggers. Fudge grabbed hold of me as we zoomed along the road through the zoo. At one sharp curve, the golf cart almost toppled. Minnie laughed like crazy. The natural beauty shrieked, and the one next to me, I think it was Flora, grabbed my arm and dug her fingernails into my flesh. On the next curve, she practically ended up in my lap. She cried, Daddy, slow down. But Cousin Howie yelled, Yippee, as he swerved and curved and drove like a total maniac. Yippee, Minnie yelled with him. Finally, Eurodora shouted, Howie, think of the example you're setting for your children. Cousin Howie slammed on the brakes. The rest of us fell forward. Got carried away there for a minute, Cousin Howie said. What do we do when we get carried away? We stop and count to 10, the natural beauty said, sounding relieved. And if that doesn't work, Cousin Howie asked, we count to 10 again, the girl said. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, Cousin Howie said. Let's all count together. He took a deep breath, then counted to 10. The natural beauties counted along with him. I don't hear everybody counting, Cousin Howie said, turning to look at me and Fudge. This time we counted along with the others. When we got to 10, Minnie kicked his feet and shouted, Yippee, again. Good, very good, Cousin Howie said. Later, when we met up with Mom and Dad, Fudge said, Look what Cousin Eurodora got me at the panda gift shop. He held out a tiny stuffed panda. I'd bought the same one for Tootsie. How thoughtful of Eurodora to buy you a souvenir, Mom said. It's not the one I wanted, Fudge said.